and time to start our webinar. So welcome to our webinar tonight, which is Keep Calm and Self-Tape. So my name's Beth Wood and I'm the Director of Prospero Theatre and also a Director of Mind Fitness. I'm co-author of Unlock You, which was published by Pearson in 2019, which details the whole of the mind fitness process that we're using tonight. And just written a second book, which is Emotional Health for Performers, which is due to be published this autumn. I work with Mind Fitness and Prospero with Equity and Scottish Equity and Bex, and with various drama schools and theatre companies, helping performers to get to a place where they can reduce their anxiety and achieve their potential. So this is a very important subject for me. Handing over to the rest of the team to introduce themselves.
Hello, my name is Cathy. I'm a teacher and a performer. I've been teaching for a number of years now in schools, teaching drama. I've recently decided to return to the industry. So I'm going to go back to acting, which is what I did before. I also used to run a theatre company and facilitate workshops as well.
Hi, I'm Valentina. I'm a performer and I'm also a member of the Washing Machine Collective, where we're currently developing a new show on the environmental crisis.
Hi, my name is Sergio. I am from Wales and I'm a performer and a teacher at Prospero Theatre for youth and special needs people. And I've been working with Prospero since its beginning and with Beth much more before that.
And hi, I'm Margot. I'm also a performer and I also work with Beth and Sergio at Prospero Theatre. I mainly look after the creative and wellbeing hub to offer resources for people with mental health, wellbeing activities and some really creative assets as well.
So when we do our 6-week Mindfulness for Performers courses, we always ask what are the main causes of anxiety or stress. And one of the ones that's come up very much in the lockdown period is the self-tape audition, and that's what led to this webinar being created. So during this webinar, we're going to address some of the specific issues relating to self-tape auditions. But before we do that, I think it's worth just looking at the issues around auditions of any kind, live or self-taped. For an awful lot of actors, it's something that causes an enormous amount of stress. So we're going to think first about what causes that stress and then look at 4 issues to do with it. So what causes the stress? If you went into our brain, through our ears and through our eyes, you'd come to 2 almond-shaped pieces of the brain called the amygdala. And the amygdala has 2 jobs. In normal everyday life, what it does is it passes information up to the prefrontal cortex, mostly sensory information. But in stressful situations, what it does instead is it instigates our fight or flight response. I'm sure we all know exactly what that feels like. And the important thing to remember is that once the amygdala has instigated our fight or flight, then no information whatsoever gets passed up to the prefrontal cortex, which is why in stressful or difficult situations, our mind just goes completely blank. We simply can't. And it's in those situations that we need to be thinking our best think and problem solving, and we literally can't. So it's really important that we have techniques that we can use, which we're going to learn through this session today, that we can bring ourselves out of fight or flight as quickly as possible. So one of the things that we use in mind fitness is mindfulness. So mindfulness, simple definition, to bring your attention to the present moment in order to experience life more clearly and more fully. And it's got lots and lots of benefits, but one of them is to get you out of fight or flight. So I'm going to do a very quick mindfulness exercise and then actually a very quick cognitive exercise. Both only take a few seconds. So this is the mindfulness one first. And it's an exercise called STOP. And it's a mnemonic, so it's really easy to remember. S stands for stop. T stands for take a breath, O stands for observe, and P stands for proceed. So I'd like us now to do it together. It's literally a few seconds. So whatever you're doing at this moment, you're processing the information that we're giving to you on the webinar. Just stop, take a breath. So it's in through the nose and out through the mouth in order to bring the heart rate and stress cortisol level down quickest. And now O is observe. So notice something around you. Just focus in on any given thing that you're choosing and really observe it in detail. The color, the shape, the shade, the texture, shadows. Give yourself about 6 seconds. And then proceed back to what you were doing, in this case, processing the information in this video. So it's a really quick exercise. And if you're just using the breath, it takes about 4 breaths. If you're not doing the whole stop exercise, but you're just focusing in on your breath, it's 4 breaths to bring yourself to a place where you're thinking more clearly. You know, there's almost no times in our life that we can't afford the time to do 4 breaths or the stop exercise to get us back into that great place. And the cognitive exercise that we're going to do is called catch and throw. Again, very quick. So all it is as that automatic negative thought comes into your mind, whatever it is, you catch it in your hand. So I might say, the director didn't smile when I finished my piece. And then you turn it and you throw it and you say something that's a positive version of it. So it might be, the director seemed to be considering what I'd done during my piece straight after it. So you literally catch it, turn it, and throw the negative thought away. So they're really simple ways of combating the fight or flight and just getting yourself into a better place. So we're going to think about now 4 issues that are around any kind of audition, whether it's live or self-tape. And the first one is the tendency that we all have to put much too much pressure on ourselves. And Sergio is going to talk about that.
Of course. Well, I think it's something that links all of us, especially after the pandemic. We've been abandoned to ourselves to film our auditions when before everything was almost like a given. We just go there, do our thing and go away. My problem, and I'm a champion of that, well, I used to be at the very least, is that I am way too harsh on myself. So I would take a take of my audition, I would self-tape, I wouldn't like it, I will do it again. And then maybe I'd be happy with that. But there was that one particular that wasn't quite right, so I'd do it again and again. And then maybe I would just about hit the deadline. I've done a few auditions recently for different shows, Murder Mystery, the most recent one I've done online. And I would be very, very harsh on myself in maybe not getting that take quite right or not filming that particular part the way I really wanted it to be. Maybe I stumbled. But at the end of the day, with the techniques that we are discussing tonight, I managed to get over it, just to realize that it's good to do what we're able to do. People want to see our skills as an actor. They don't want to see, well, it's better if we have, I would prefer for that to be a beautiful background and special effects, but it's absolutely fine if it's just me and I'm presenting to you my craft, and then it's up to you if you want to cast me and you want to use my skills in your production.
Yes, and a lot of that has themes that we'll be coming back to many times sort of through the session. If you're thinking about the sort of language, we all put incredible demands, heavy demands on ourselves and actually sometimes on other people as well. And we can recognize that in the language of like, I must be better, I must get a better take, I must do my absolute best, or even beyond my best, I must be perfect, which of course is unattainable, which puts lots and lots of stress on us. And we can swap that in, as Sergio sort of said, by making it instead of preference. So instead of the must, have to, should, it's I would prefer that, ... but ... So, you know, I would prefer that I did my absolute best at the audition, but I accept that whatever I could do in that moment was the best that I could do. So perhaps could we all give an example of the preferences?
Yes, of course. Well, I would prefer, of course, doing auditions face to face. as per usual, but I'm actually very grateful that we've got at least internet, at hand for us to keep connecting with each other.
Yes, I would prefer that I had a technical expert who was always on hand to film me and set everything up for me and do all of that without me having to do any of it. But I accept that I can learn to do it myself and I can do a good enough job.
I would prefer to get the job just by submitting my professionally made showreel. However, I accept that each casting is unique and therefore a self-tape probably more suited.
And I would prefer to have better lighting, but I accept that this is the best spot I have, and I will do my best.
Lovely. And it really is something that you can just practice, just to train your brain to think in a way that puts less pressure on yourself. So just go round and for the next couple of weeks, just reframe everything. I would prefer that the train had come on time, my dinner was hotter, colder, whatever it is, just get yourself to practice. So that's the first thing that applies across live and self-tape auditions, is putting too much pressure on ourselves. When we do get the audition, we're so wanting for it to be the job that we actually end up getting in our own way, tripping ourselves up. So the second one is taking things too personally. Some of you might have heard of something called cognitive bias, which is the negative slants that our brain, just because of the way that it's constructed, will put on things. And one of those cognitive bias is personalization, where we place ourselves at the center of essentially external events. We think that we're guilty or to blame. And it's very likely that any criticism will be taken very personally. And it's one of the most important things to counter, because actually we need to be able to take, quite harsh, brutal criticism from ourselves and other people. It's only brutality if it's meant personally. So the better we can get out of taking things personally, and you can do it by just simply doing the demand to preference or doing the catch and throw that we've done before. So that's the second one, taking things too personally. The third one is replaying the audition in our mind afterwards, when we know the past is the past. So essentially why we do that in terms of the brain is we have about 60,000 thoughts a day. Only 5% are spent on the task in hand, and the rest of our thoughts are what is labelled as noise. And there's many different kinds of noise, but the two important ones, which we're going to talk about just for a minute, are past noise and future noise. So past noise first.
So past noise is when we are stuck on things that happened in the past and we're dwelling on it. So we are replaying the situation in our brain over and over and over, and we can't possibly change it because it's in the past. So this is especially true after an audition. We just go home and we cling to it. We keep replaying it in our head, and possibly every time it will be a worse version of what you thought previously. And then by the end of it, you sort of have like a lie in your head that you're convincing yourself of.
And future?
The future noise is when we imagine a number of potential futures, all of which will probably in our own heads have a negative outcome. So we start to think of all of the worst things that could possibly happen in every given situation, and then we run that like a little mind movie, imagining all of those worst scenarios happening. And particularly before auditions or before beginning on a self-tape, we're likely to be thinking about all of that future noise, and that's going to hamper us and stop us getting going even more so.
Definitely. So if you do find yourself falling prey to past noise or future noise, as soon as that automatic negative thought comes into your mind, just do the catch and throw or do the mindfulness exercise to try and bring yourself out of it. Also worth just noticing whether you fall prey to past noise or future noise. It's likely to be one or the other, because once you've sort of labelled it for yourself, and you much easier to become aware of it and then to challenge it and to change it quicker. So the fourth one that we're going to do is the fact that we are likely to raise the anxiety around the audition into a sort of life-threatening situation. We all have the tendency to see things as more awful than they are. So that's actually called awfulizing, or sometimes called catastrophizing. So obviously there are situations which are genuinely serious, but because of the way that our brain works, it's likely that we raise up the more trivial issues into something that seems much more threatening than it really is. And so it's a very useful thing just to say to yourself, how awful is it really on a scale of 1 to 10? And then you can practice by giving yourself situations and trying to give different responses to the same situation, whereby a level 1 response is it's pretty nearly fine, through to a level 10 response where it is literally the end of the world. So we're going to do that now, and our situation is it's an audition, could be live, could be self-tape, for a West End show, quite a lot of pressure on ourselves. So we're going to give a 2, 4, 6, 8 and a 10 response to that situation.
Right. I'll take the 2 response. Okay, I got 5 hours till the deadline. It's a little tight, but I'll get to it. I can do it. It's fine.
I'll take number 4. So I'm not sure I can perform very well in these conditions, but I'm going, at least it's practice for next time, and even if I don't get the role, it's better to try.
Okay, I'll take number 6. So 5 hours, that's a couple of hours to sort out the technicals, a couple of hours to learn the lines and rehearse. Going to need about an hour to upload the whole video. The thing's going to be late. I'm not going to get it in on time.
Okay, I'll take the number 8. I actually can't believe that my agent has said that I'm okay to do this. I'm never going to be able to manage it in the time. And this is a director that I've wanted to work with for years and years and years, and the opportunity will be lost and he is never going to see me again.
And to conclude, number 10. Well, this is absolutely ridiculous. It's next to no time. Like, why am I paying this guy to find work from me? Maybe I should stop. And what's this? My camera is out of battery, my lighting rig is not working, and I have next to no time to prepare for lines. This is a disaster.
I think we all recognise that, don't we?
Absolutely, we've all been there.
We've all been there. So, and the really important thing is it's partly about bringing the numbers down. It's partly about not sweating the small stuff in life as well as in auditions. But actually, much more than that, it's about training your brain so that you are in control. You are able to manage the way you respond to any situation that gives you the best chance of getting in there and doing what you can. So I suppose the only thing that I would sort of add to those is that it's really important to identify what is and what isn't within our control. And what isn't within our control, we have to accept it. We might not approve of it, but we have to accept it. You know, we can't change the fact that there is only 5 hours to go in the situation that we've just done. But what we can change or make sure that we do is that we use those 5 hours to the best possible purpose. And that's only going to happen if we keep ourselves in a place where we're not in fight or flight and we're able to think our best think and respond creatively. So those are the 4 things that really apply across the board, whether it's a live audition or a self-tape. And now we're going to move into the realms of the self-tape, which has become a bit of a demon, hasn't it, through the pandemic. So I'm sure that a lot of this will be familiar to you. This is a video made by Sergio and Tristan.
Hi, I'm Sergio. And I'm Tristan. We are 2 actors from Wales with a passion for getting until the end of the month.
And just like you, this current pandemic has made us face our biggest struggle: self-taping. So follow us as we go through some highlights on our journey.
And maybe, just maybe, you'll find out that you're not alone in this. Oh,
rules. We already spoke about this. No jumping on the counter.
I love you, Alexis. I will always love you. Was that okay?
Yeah, that was actually, that was not too bad. Oh, whoa!
Chase!
This is a toilet cleaner you didn't know you needed.
And so, as I told you, I am not scared of you. And so, as I told you, I am not scared of you. Coming. And so, as I told you, I am not scared of you.
Sergio, do you know where they're hidden?
What?
What's this? Sergio, I told you nothing too flashy. Are you ready? I specifically told you to wear black. I can't do this. I can't do this.
Tristan, wait, Tristan! And my hobbies are drawing and play video games. And I've been told many times that I can be the glue that keeps together a group. I think that's fine.
So as you can see, this sort of thing happens to everyone.
So don't give up and keep self-taping.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Sergio and Tristan.
Pleasure.
So some of the anxieties that we have are around the practical aspects of self-taping. And Margot's just going to talk about those for a moment.
Indeed, some technical issues that I've had today as well. Yes, the worst thing about self-taping is often all the practical aspects of it that you don't usually have to deal with. So concerns about is my equipment good enough? Is the lighting good enough? Can I use this take because my head went slightly out of frame at that moment? But it is the best take. Should I send this one, or should I film it again 20 times until I get the perfect take? So that's something we're going to look at next.
I think it's, that technical versus the creative was something that came up in an awful lot of people's questions. So we've taken, when we were getting this together, we took questions from actors who'd done previous courses with us. And we actually put some of those questions to two drama schools who sent in videos, which we're going to play later on. But the first video that we're going to play is from one of our actors. He's called Christian Westencott, and this gives so many problems and issues that people are going to be familiar with, I'm sure.
Hello, I'm Christian Westencott. I'm 19 years old and I'm currently on the Guildford School of Acting and Musical Theatre Foundation course. This is my second year of auditioning for BA Musical Theatre courses. So I'm just going to talk to you about the different struggles and challenges I faced this year with the self-taping process, and maybe just some things that I would do differently if I had to do it again. Before I start though, I would like to say a massive thank you to Beth Wood for allowing me to speak about my experience of self-taping and for all the help that she's given me on the Mindfulness for Performers course that I did a few weeks ago. It has helped no end, and I still try and put into practice every day all the different things that you told me to do. So thank you, Beth. So first of all, I'm going to talk about some of the different challenges that I faced with them quite briefly, just so it's not too long. But I think one of the biggest challenges that everyone faces with this is lack of space. When I say lack of space, I actually do mean two different things. Lack of space performance-wise, you might be in a bedroom like I was. I cleared everything, tried to get like a nice white wall like this, and you don't have much space to, you know, perform your speeches, songs, or dances. I suppose for speeches and songs, you don't need that much space anyway, because you're just trying to be still. But for dances, it can be quite challenging. So I think the biggest thing that I would say for that would be, I would say try and show where you're at with the technical side for dance as best as you can. But I would say concentrate on the performance more than anything. That's what they really want to see. For musical theatre, I mean, that's what they really want to see. And they want to see how you interpret the music and how you interpret the dance moves. So I would focus on that and not trying to have, you know, the perfect dance technique, because they will understand that you might be limited for space. The second space problem is storage. I know a few other people that have had this problem. You end up doing so many different self-tapes that you run out of storage halfway through a song or halfway through your speech, and it can be soul destroying if you have, you know, you think you've got the take you want and it cuts out halfway through. That happened to me a lot, and I think that really affected my stress levels. That used to stress me out a lot, to be fair. So to tackle that problem, I would say go through all your camera roll and your recently deleted as well, and just get rid of all the things that you don't want and all the videos that you have stored up that you don't need, and just get rid of them, delete them, and then go to recently deleted and delete them, so that when you are performing, you have, it's less likely that it's going to cut out from storage. So yeah, there's a few videos on YouTube of how to get better storage without having to like pay for extra storage, and just, you know, clearing up all that space that you've used up. So that's what I would suggest for that. And just as I finished saying that, my storage ran out, so maybe I need to take my own advice and clear my phone before I start trying to film a video. Along with storage comes different technical issues. For example, your phone might run out of charge. That happened to me a lot during takes. So try and make a timetable of when you're going to do your self-tapes. If you prefer to do them in the afternoon or the evening, try and charge your phone up to 100% before you do your self-tapes, so that you have, you know, full charge and it's not going to run out as easily. So what I would say is try and find a time before your self-tapes to charge your devices. If you're using music, to charge the device that you're using the music on, as well charge the device you're filming on, so that you kind of can rule out the possibility of it dying whilst you're doing a self-tape. Another way to kind of sort that problem would be to have it plugged into a charging cable whilst you're doing it. If you're next to a plug and you can charge it, that's also really good. And just make sure that that possibility of it dying is not going to happen. Lastly, on the more technical side, I would also suggest maybe putting your phone onto airplane mode when you film. That way you can kind of ensure that nobody's going to message you and it's going to disrupt your filming, and you won't get any, you know, noises in the background from your phone. So yeah, I would also suggest, if you're using music on another device, if you're able to screen record the backing tracks you're using, if it be on the piano or an instrumental, if you screen record them, you can then put the other device you're using the music on onto airplane too, so that Ranty doesn't, you know, try and call you in the middle of it, like me. One of the more frustrating problems, I think, would be the interruptions. If you're in a household environment, explain to your family or your friends that, you know, you're self-taping and you need to be left alone. I forgot to do that sometimes, and people would walk in and, you know, ruin the take. But then comes the interruptions from the outside world: hedge trimmers, lawn mowers, dogs, people playing on the street. If the noise from the outside world, for example, people walking down the street talking, is really noisy, then try and film it again when they've gone. However, if it is quite a small amount of time, maybe like a few seconds, you can hear them and you've got a take that you're really happy with and it's not really distracting, then that's fine. I've used a take for dance before where you can hear people, kids I think, playing in the street for like 2 or 3 seconds, and it didn't affect the outcome at all. I ended up getting into that school, so it should be fine. And I think they understand, the panel understand, that there might be distractions from the outside world or interruptions, So just try not to be too hard on yourself. If you can get rid of interruptions, then 100% do it. I'm talking about interruptions now.
Are you actually?
I'm going to put that in the video. Speaking of interruptions, one thing that people don't realise can affect their performance on a self-tape is the fact that you have a camera right in front of your face. For people that are used to doing more theatre than they are working with cameras, it can be quite distracting to have that camera in your face the whole time whilst you're performing, and it can also be quite, it can make you feel a little bit intimidated and not as comfortable as you would be just performing to people, or it might make you feel less intimidated. It depends on what you're like, but it definitely affects the way you perform. So something I would suggest doing is trying to have the camera in a place that, you know, has, you know, from here up to your head, in the frame. I think sometimes when people have their cameras really, really close to them, they can't visualize what is going on around them in the scene or the song, and that can be quite troublesome because, especially in singing or acting, you need to be able to visualize what is happening around you and how it's affecting you. And by having that camera really, really close and having to aim a lot of your material to the camera, that can be quite tough. So if you can, they've added a new setting on cameras on phones where you can put it quite far away but zoom in quite close. Now the quality might not be as crisp, however, especially for drama schools, they really don't mind if it's not, you know, the clearest thing. As long as you can see your facial expression clearly and it's not really pixelated, that's the main thing, and the lighting is good. Try and have it in a place where you've got at least a meter or maybe a bit more, where you can just kind of see what is happening around you and you don't feel like the camera is right in your personal bubble, unless you really need it to be. And the last challenge that I'm sure everyone will be able to relate to, whether it be acting, musical theatre, dance, whatever it is that you've been taping, would be perfectionism. And 9 times out of 10, in an audition room in person, you do your material once. So you kind of put all that energy into that one performance. And if there are any parts that, you know, you're not particularly happy with, you kind of just end up brushing over it because it's done and you've done the best you can. But with self-tapes, you have the opportunity to do it over and over and over until your heart's content. That's really, really hard, and you can drive yourself insane until you get the absolute perfect take. And that's what I was like. I did about 120 takes one day, probably more, of the same song, just trying to get it exactly the way I wanted it, when probably the 3rd take of it would have been enough. It's making sure you have that balance of doing it enough times because you have the opportunity to get it where you want it to be. It's making sure that you don't go over and over and over until it becomes so perfect that the little things at the start that made it good anyway are gone because you've tried to make it the best you possibly can. And this is something that I really, really try and practice, and I haven't got there yet, is trying to get it within, you know, 5 to 10 takes. And hopefully one day that will get better. At the moment, I'm not at that point yet, but I hope to be soon, where I can just do it and just go, you know what, it's not perfect, but it's the best I can do for that day. And I'm sure the people watching, you will be able to get to that point too. Everyone will at some point. The biggest thing that I want to say from my experience of self-taping is that even though it seems quite technical, and for some people that's quite challenging, for me, I'm not technical at all. The people watching you want you to do a good job, and they're not looking for the perfect clear space or the perfect self-tape. They're looking for a performance, and they're looking for people that they think have a passion for performing. And if your self-tape isn't perfect, that is completely acceptable. As long as you've done your best, that's fine. It's good to have that inside of you where you want it to be as perfect as you can. And as humans, we aren't perfect. That's natural. So a massive good luck to anyone that's still self-taping, and good luck for the future, and have a lovely day. Thank you very much.
That's lovely. And actually, there's an amazing amount of good advice in there, as well as a really clear kind of outline of what some of the the challenges and problems are. So we're going to take 4 of those issues now and look at them and think about what we can do to help to make it better. And the first one is going to be talked about by Sergio.
Absolutely. So I think we can all relate with what Christian said. We all do way too many takes, way too many than what we need to do. And doing so many takes can sometimes tighten up the actor, and you may end up into this sort of loop where you watch it, and maybe in that particular take you were not very much into the character, so fair enough, you want to film it again, but then you film it again and over, and that is just going to build up stress over you. So in order to avoid that, one really good advice is to do 3 takes, then look at these takes, watch them. If you're happy with them, that's brilliant, you're done. But if you're not happy with it, then just don't do anything. Walk away and come back later. Do another 3 takes. And on until you can get the right take that you think is fine for you. Now, this could even go into the next day. So it's very, very important to leave some contingency time before the deadline so that you don't end up, not having time to do the extra takes you need. And that way is not going to build up any stress in you. So, the real problem is that, like, by watching the takes, it kind of becomes addictive because you just want to improve it and improve it and improve it. And sometimes it's just this weird idea that you're on screen and you're just watching yourself performing. You never really watch yourself performing in an audition, which is really crazy. That also builds up stress. And also it's this stress is fed by something that we call cognitive biases. So we're going to talk about 2 cognitive biases in particular here. The first one, as Christian said, as we all said tonight, is perfectionism. Now, I am a massive perfectionist. Well, okay, hold on. I used to be a massive perfectionist. Now, with mindfulness, I managed to sort of keep it down, on a safe level. But perfectionism just doesn't exist. It's a concept that doesn't exist. There's always going to be a flaw. There's always a flaw. There's always going to be a problem, with anything in the world. So we need to sort of like stop trying to chase perfection and just take the best take that we think we've done that time. We've done our best, as we said, and we move on. The second cognitive bias is actually procrastination. And that could come from perfectionism. Sometimes you're so stressed and you're like, oh no, I have to go back to it to do other 3 takes. I really don't want to do that. I'll do it later. And then of course you get to the deadline and you got next to no time, and we convince ourselves, and that's completely wrong, that because we're walking under so much stress and we're focusing, we don't have time, so we have to get it done. That's when we do our best job. Well, actually, it's the complete opposite. We're doing the worst, but not the worst, but like not our best. We are sort of like 50%, 50%. And we sort of want to drop this attitude. We kind of want to just release the stress, don't build it up, and just do your best. And another problem that we have is that what makes us panic, or at the very least me, what made me panic, is that sometimes I would feel that it would just take forever to film myself, take the right lighting, set up the room, then edit the video, then send it. But what we need to remember is that before this, we would just travel to the places, and it could have been London. And for me, that would be already far, me being in Wales. But it could have been in Germany, France, it could have taken the entire day. You do 15 minutes audition, and then who knows if you're going to get called back. All of this time is probably saved by self-taping because you got all the time you need, of course, if you left yourself some contingency time, and you just don't have to rush anymore. You can just take your time and then just ease into it, and hopefully you'll get the best take you can.
I think that's, again, very, very good advice. Almost all of us who've ever had to do making videos for anything or self-taping have done that terrible thing of taking too many takes. I think the 3 and then leaving it, and 3 and then leaving it is a good idea. And a lot of the casting directors we contacted said, don't do any more than 3 takes. That's really hard, but the closer you can get to it, the better. So too many takes is our first one. And the second one is going to be talked about by Kathy.
Yeah, so this second problem that I can imagine if I'm embarking on this self-tape journey is going to be being too self-critical. Got this little inner voice, this inner critic talking to me about all of the things I'm not doing right. And so far in my past, that's just been the audition itself. Now it's going to do it about the lighting and the sound and the quality of the camera. So I feel like my inner critic might be going twice as crazy as it was before, because now there's so much more to criticize in me. So I'm really going to need to find ways in order to kind of to approach self-tapes in a calm way, to deal with that inner critic and help calm that voice down.
So the inner critic is really about our negative self-talk, and that's another kind of noise that we have. You know, we pretty much all of us are harsher on ourselves than we ever would be on other people, and we tell ourselves we can't rather than tell ourselves we can, and something like an audition self-tape will bring that to the front. So in terms of sort of tackling the negative self-talk, I would say, first of all, it's really following the process of being aware of it and labeling it, because then you can start to call it out. But also there's a lovely exercise where you go from inner critic to inner cheerleader. So you just write down a piece of your negative self-talk, maybe in a little bubble that says inner critic, and then you do another little bubble next to it which says inner cheerleader, and you move it from negative self-talk to a positive affirmation. So that's a positive statement. So you've redesigned and put the positive slant on it. When you're making a positive affirmation, it's great if you can keep it in the present tense. So I am good at auditioning, or and try and keep it as a positive construct. So not saying I'm not scared of doing, because otherwise your brain will pick up on the negative. So present tense and positive construct, and try and do that as often as you can. But also you can use the things that we've already said already, you know, bringing it down to a preference and doing the catch and throw. So really try and catch out that negative self-talk as quickly as you can, call it out, change it to the positive. The third issue that we're going to be looked at is from Valentina.
Right. I find self-taping being quite a lonely process. It's just me, especially I come from a strong theatre background, so most of my auditions would be for stage projects. That means that I'm not overly as familiar with the filming process as I am with the stage process. And I miss that. I miss the interaction of you go into an audition, and sometimes it will be a workshop audition, so you will have other performers around you where you're going to interact with them. You're going to feed them and they're going to feed you. It's a nourishing, it's almost like a nourishing environment, which you don't get that at all when you're self-taping. It's just you, your camera in an empty room. You don't have any feedback, even for castings, like for adverts and films and short films and all that. You go in, there is a panel, you know, there is that icebreaker question, a little giggle, something to get you going. You have none of them. It's a quiet room, hopefully quiet, depending on flatmates. Yeah, so just put this in a parenthesis. So I feel like the minute I start doing the self-tape, as Kathy said, the inner critic starts shouting. And of course, as Sergio mentioned, procrastination kicks in. Then, oh, the lighting is not good. Oh, the frame is not good. Oh, maybe I need to change my top. And by the end, by the time you've sorted out everything in order to be perfect, it's 3 hours later, you're already exhausted. You know what, I'm going to do it tomorrow. And tomorrow is when the self-tape should be in, not the day that you should be self-taping it. So
I think you've actually, you know, hit something really important there, because I think the reason we do too many takes is also related to that. I would say, you know, if you can try and involve someone else in the process at some point along the line, if you have time to get them to watch your piece, get them to have a look at your first few takes that you've done. And I think that's because when we look at what we've done, we're seeing it with eyes that are not professional. You know, we're used to seeing ourselves on family photos and, you know, and we're noticing things that are probably nothing to do with the depth of our character or the quality of our work. It's, you know, it's much more likely that it's the, you know, the wrinkle that you don't like, or the bit of your hair that goes in the wrong direction, you know, or that you don't like that particular angle. And so it's, you know, it's great if you can hand that over to somebody else to have a look at if you have time. I would say as well, because of the cognitive bias that quite a few of us have mentioned at different points, it's likely that we will convince ourselves that our concerns are genuine and creatively based when they're not. So yeah, I would say try and involve someone else as often as you can in that creative process. As you said, you know, we're not used to being creative on our own. That's not how we work. Into the fourth one, Margot.
Yeah, my issue with self-taping most of the time is that I feel an overwhelming sense that I'm acting, as in obviously we are, but as an actors and performers, we usually need to be in the moment, doing a warm-up. When I've set up all the tech and ready to self-tape, I feel like it's so staged, and I find I struggle sometimes to really center and ground myself and give my best performance, because I'm thinking too much about where the camera's positioned, is the lighting okay, or the ring lights just fall in on the side. So I do feel myself either slightly distracted by or the tech and not really in the moment, or that I'm acting and not really giving the best performance I could be.
So I'm not going to say too much about this, because actually both of the videos that we have in from drama schools go into that in quite a lot of detail. But I think I would just say one thing that I think is really important is that people, you know, they're so stressed about the technical aspects, and then they finally get it right and they go straight into the take, you know, and without giving ourselves the space to leave that kind of technical arena and step back into our creative space and make sure that, you know, we have thought about the things that we would always be thinking about before an audition, you know, the previous circumstances, all the character journey, everything that we absolutely know, but we're not thinking about because we've literally not given ourselves. So I would say, again, a quick mindfulness exercise just to get ourselves back into a creative place is really useful. So those are the four sort of specifics that we're going to deal at. We're going to have a look at the videos in a minute from the two drama schools. But it's worth just having a quick whiz through the practical aspects. So when we were getting questions in from actors, what they wanted to see us answering in this webinar. And actually, if you have any questions, attendees that are watching, please do feel free to put them into the chat, and we'll have a look at and see if there are any at the end that haven't been addressed. That's absolutely fine. But there were quite a few questions on the practical aspects. So these are answers to those that come from casting directors that we spoke to. Kathy?
So preparation is key. We know that. We go to an audition, either it's live or it's self-tape, we really need to prepare for it. Not only now the role, the character, the lines, but also the technical, everything else that we now need to think about. Just make sure that we've got the lighting right, make sure we've got the sound right, that we're not slipping in and out of the frame, and making sure that we've got everything set up well in advance of the time that we need to get it sent in. But it seems, just listening to everybody today, listening to the video that Christian put and the other actors who've been making self-tapes for a while, that it isn't imperative to have it perfect. You don't have to have the best equipment, but you just need to try and do the best with what you've got and show that you're a professional. That seems to me like the best way forward. Do what you can with what you've got and show them that you really want the job because you're prepared to put the time in and make it look as good as you can.
Actually, that's really, really good advice. So I'm going to talk briefly about the recording device and the shot. So for 99% of the self-tapes that you'll be doing it on an iPhone is absolutely adequate. There are a few television or film that would want you to record it on a DSLR, but not many. making sure that you use the camera that's at the back of the phone because that's higher quality. Make sure you station it on a tripod so it's nice and still. If you did want to go to a DSLR, you're probably talking about £300, something like that. In terms of the shot, so record it on landscape if you're doing it on an iPhone. A medium shot usually is from top of head to bottom of waist, but sometimes it can just be to shoulders. So, you know, really key, make sure that you read the instructions on the self-tape.
Absolutely. Actually, believe it or not, I had to do, for the spoof video, I had to do some takes on my phone, and I was terrified that, like, while I was editing, of course, the quality wouldn't match. But there was absolutely no problem. I did some with DSLR and some with the iPhone, and then the quality absolutely matched, and there was no difference.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? How good the phones are now. Yeah, brilliant. Valentina?
Right, let's talk about background and lighting. We saw again in Sergio's video his setup and what was going around it, with a little bit of the backstage of the camera. So depending on your space, just don't overcomplicate things. Just keep it simple. For example, for a background, just use a plain white wall. It's quite acceptable. Although the trend is a light grey would work quite well. For example, if you see Kathy now, she has a very nice grey wall behind her, so she's very, very well positioned in front of her, it, and her eyes are coming out. The color of her eyes are coming out very nicely as well. And likewise with Margot as well. She has this. Probably I will call it like a green shade or a blue shade. But then again, if you still, your attention goes to her eyes, because it helps her eyes stand out. The color of her eyes stand out a little better. If you don't have a colored wall, is absolutely fine. You can use a sheet if you would like. However, be aware of any distractions. For example, you want to use a white sheet or a gray sheet, make sure it's stain-free and iron it. Right, in terms of lighting, again, all sorts of different setups. At the beginning of lockdown, everybody was going crazy with the ring lights. I'm sure we were all trying to get our hands on because there was shortage and all that going on. However, halfway through, the feedback we were getting from casting directors was that it was a bit distracting, because the ring was reflecting on the performer's eyes and was make them look a bit funny. It was distracting it was taking away from the performance. What is recommended instead is that you can use 2 soft key lights. You can buy them online. There's several offers going on, so you don't necessarily have to invest in it. Go on eBay, do your search, or on Amazon. We've got a quote here, 2 soft key lights for about £60. But I'm sure you can find better deals as well. Now, if you do use these lights, make sure you place them on either side of your camera at about 45-degree angle, roughly. If you don't have the resources, the financial resources, or the space to store all that, don't worry at all. Natural light will do the job. Just go and stand in front of a nice window, a big window where you can get lots of natural light. If you've been watching our tiles tonight, you have probably noticed that my tile goes darker and brighter. That is because I've got this wall here is actually glass. So because we've got lovely May weather now, you can see when the sun is coming out and when the clouds are covering. So that's why you see me going darker or brighter. So just keep that in mind. If you're using natural light, time your filming.
Yeah, that's very good advice. Very good advice. Sergio?
Yes, let's talk about where to look while we're filming an audition take. For scripted scenes, it's indicated to look just on the side of the camera. So if I were So if my camera is here, where my finger is, I will look right here to the side. While if you're doing an audition for, and you're singing, you're doing a song, it's absolutely fine and actually required to look straight into the camera objective. Now for microphones, using an iPhone microphone, or, you know, just your phone microphone, not just an iPhone, is absolutely fine. But bear in mind that they do tend to pick up a lot of background noise. So the best option after that is to actually use a shotgun microphone with an adapter, and that will sort of like direct the microphone straight at you and sort of pick up just your voice. And if you were looking for something, you know, average spending price, not too pricey, we actually recommend using a Rode video mix microphone.
Right. And when it comes to what to wear, you preferably solid colors, nothing distracting, like nothing with brands or words or patterns that might distract from your performance. And if you want to play it safe, wear black, but otherwise block colors are fine as well. And for your slate, keep it simple, straightforward, be yourself, show how unique you are, but no need to do a 360 unless they ask for it, and keep it short and snappy and try and get your message across, and because that's the most important thing, especially for drama schools or auditions that you've got coming up.
Right, another thing you might like to put a little thought on is a reader. So you might be asked, instead of a monologue, to do a scene where you will have to find somebody to read in for you. Now, for some of us, that can be a very stressful situation. But there are a few things we can do to manage the stress, of course, with the exercises that we can practice, but also organizing the whole process. Things you can do. First of all, don't panic. You don't need a professional actor to read in for you. Remember, the reader is nowhere in the shot. So just have a little think, who would be a good person to feed you the lines for that scene? Saying that, maybe your mother might not be the best idea. So think who could be there, who could be more objective while you're doing this, while you're self-taping. Another thought that we came up during lockdown is to create a bubble. I'm sure by now we should all be familiar with that term. So choose or talk to your friends and colleagues and get together, maybe 2 to 5 people. I would say it's more than enough, and commit in a way that you will read in for them whenever they need you, and they can read in for you whenever you need that. So I say 2 to 5, just in case that, you know, 2 of them are unavailable. So you need to have a backup plan. And of course, with technology today, your reader could be anywhere in the world. Recently, I had an audition where I needed to do an American accent. So I called a friend that lives in the States to read in for me. So I could hear it and almost imitate the accent in a way. But I find little tricks like that quite handy. Now, if you don't have anyone in the house, or all your colleagues are busy and no one can help you, or the casting came in, as was said, very last minute, and you have to do it overnight, again, don't worry about it. A couple of things you can do about that. There are several applications and websites where they provide this particular service. For example, there is a website called weaudition.com where you can go on, you type in the lines, and then they can feed it back to you while you're filming. And also, don't look very far. The reader might be in the same room as you. What do I mean? Just use your smartphone, record yourself reading the other part, and then when you do the self-tape, just play back the lines, and then you respond to them. Overall, with readers, as we said, keep it simple. Make sure that your reader is not nowhere in the shot, and they are not as loud as you, which means it will be good if they are not very close to the mic you're using. Now, we filmed the self-tape. We did the million takes, hopefully not. And we know exactly what we're going to submit. Then it comes the editing stress. Again, for some of us, is easier than others. There are plenty of softwares available that you can get your hands on. If you have an Apple computer already, it comes with an editing software. It's called iMovie, and it's very straightforward to use. Saying that, if you open it and you still feel overwhelmed, don't worry. Go online, YouTube tutorials. There are several of them that they take you step by step, click by click, to be precise. Also, there are other free editing software you can use, which is the Heat Film Express, which you can download for free, and also the DaVinci Resolve as well. They are the two very popular ones. Now, final point. How to send it. I think, in my humble opinion, this is the most important part of self-taping. How to send it. Where can you find this answer? On your invitation email. So when they send you the invitation to self-tape, they tell you, we want you to do it in this way. We want you to wear this. We want the shots to be, we want to see the full body or just from the waist up. But they also tell you, please submit in that way. That way could be either a YouTube link, a Vimeo link, or a WeTransfer link. Make sure you send it exactly the way they asked to receive it. Otherwise, you might risk your take not to be considered. And imagine having worked a whole weekend instead of being outside in the park with your friends, submitting it on Sunday night, and then you don't hear back for days and days, and then you get a note from your agent, well, you didn't submit it in the correct format. So that is very, 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 very important. Right, now I feel like I've been talking for a long time, but if I may I share some really not extravagant, but some strange requests I had from auditions. Now, we went through all the things like we need to be careful, everything needs to be perfect, or not perfect, sorry, needs to, things you would like to consider to be clear, your information, your slate and all. However, let's have a look at this video.
Early one morning, Peter opened the gate and walked into the big green meadow. On a branch of a tall tree sat a little bird, Peter's friend. All is quiet, chirped the bird happily. Just then, a duck came waddling round. She was glad to see that Peter had not closed the gate and decided to go for a nice swim in the deep pond in the meadow. Seeing the duck, the little bird flew down on the grass, settled next to her and shrugged his shoulders. "What type of a bird are you if you can't fly?" said he. To this, the duck replied, "What type of a bird are you if you can't swim?" and dived into the pond. Early one morning, Peter opened the gate and walked into the big green meadow. On a branch of a big tree sat a little bird, Peter's friend. All is quiet, chirped the bird happily. Just then, a duck came waddling round. She was glad to see that Peter had not closed the gate and decided to go for a nice swim in the deep pond in the meadow. Seeing the duck, the little bird down upon the grass, sat up next to her and shrugged his shoulders. "What type of a bird are you, if you can't fly?" said he. To this, the duck replied, "What type of a bird are you, if you can't swim?" and dived into the pond.
Thank you for sharing that, Valentina. And it is really interesting. So you were asked just to do the 3 versions of it back to back.
Indeed. So it seems like this video we just watched, it seems like it breaks every rule or instruction we've given so far. So I was asked to be playful with the camera, look straight into the camera, which is something that you don't really do. No slate. They didn't want any editing at all, and they wanted these 3 versions back to back. Precisely like this, one just the script, one movement and script, and one just the movement. I don't know exactly what they were looking, but what I found myself, I found that I went into autopilot. So just before I sent it through, it was all very clean, really good editing, a slate and all. And then I said, oh, just one last minute, let me just double check. I've ticked everything on their list. And I said, oh, I didn't have to spend that much time editing. I didn't have to spend time doing the slate. So once again, make sure you, just before you send it, you check the how to.
That's really good advice. And it is the thing as well that we don't always understand why they're asking in that way. It's a little bit perhaps like, in a live audition when a director might redirect a piece, but at least at that point we can say, yeah, that's interesting, why? But we have no way of doing that when it's
exactly.
It's so important, as Valentina said, just to really look well and follow the instructions. So we've got 2 videos now coming from 2 different drama schools. So we collected in a lot of questions from actors and sent them into these drama schools, and they've done an absolutely brilliant job of answering the questions. So this is the GSA one.
Hi there. My name's Andrew Davidson, and I'm a teaching fellow in acting and musical theatre at Guildford School of Acting in the University of Surrey. And welcome to GSA's contribution to Keep Calm and Self-Tape. A self-tape audition for drama school is not a test of your ability as a filmmaker. We know that not everyone has access to high-end equipment, and for some people, tech is just not their thing. But what we do need is a clear view of you. So be sure you film in front of a neutral background, and be sure you're lit from the front rather than from behind. We want to hear the sound of your voice clearly with no background noise. Do some tests, but don't endlessly record takes of your monologue as a sound check, because it'll just get very stale. The thing that we look for most is authenticity, If you can be confident and feel at ease at the same time, then you're off to a great start. Don't do your self-tape when you're flustered or in a bad mood. That will show. Give yourself time to relax, focus, and energize. We want to see you being yourself because we're looking and listening for your unique qualities as a performer. No actor can truly become someone else, but the character starts on the page and ends up in the imagination of the audience. So our job as an actor is to lift that character off the page and breathe our own life into it. And if you can do that with a genuine sense of curiosity and empathy, then we, the audience, are going to believe you. A good temperament can open many more doors than talent alone. We go to drama school to learn technique, and we need the tenacity to sustain that 3-year commitment. So I'd say if you have a good working temperament, you're reliable, you're easygoing, you're flexible, adaptable, a team player, and you like to use your imagination, then you'll be in the right zone. We want to know what inspires you to commit a lifetime, not just 3 years, to the performing arts profession. So if you're truly committed to acting, musical theatre, actor-musician, technical production, design, directing, then you should have already imagined yourself working in that profession. And I don't just mean the fairy tale version. I mean, what kind of work are you passionate about and really want to do for the rest of your life? Don't mistake celebrity for craft. What do you love about the arts? What books have you read recently? What playwrights and screenwriters do you admire? What music inspires you? The best screen actors trained on stage first. So at drama school, we accept that your self-tape audition as an untrained applicant might sometimes be a bit stagey. That's okay, because that can be a good thing if it shows us you're not afraid to go large, and it demonstrates that you understand what will be required in a theatre context. However, be sure that you always retain your authenticity during your self-tape so that we know that you know how to scale things back and honestly be you. Songs. It depends on the course. If you're auditioning for an acting program, your song should be from the heart with care for the words and open communication. We can always teach you about the music side of things later. If you're auditioning for a musical theatre course, be sure that you know what's on the page, on the score, before you hand your sheet music to the accompanist. The key, the tempo, the shape of the melody, and being used to singing that song with a live piano are all very crucial to success with a song. Many of us were much more sedentary than usual this last year, so do something physical in the lead up to any in-person audition or any self-tape, so that you're grounded, aware of your centre, and working from an alert and an energized focus. Importantly, know yourself and be okay with who that is. None of us are perfect. In fact, there's no such thing. The idea of a perfect performance is kind of like a mirage on the horizon. And of course, we all keep striving toward it. That makes us work harder to improve. And even the performers you admire most, they feel that way about their work. There's always something to improve. But what it does is it takes a lot of pressure off the show itself and allows us to enjoy the process of working toward it. Thanks very much for listening, and I hope this has been helpful advice.
I really love that video. You know, I'm actually a GSA alumni from a million years ago, and a lot of it seems still very, very familiar. You know, I think the whole thing about passion and authenticity is so key. And it's really just not allowing the tech to sabotage that, you know, to believe in your creative abilities and not let the tech side of it to get in the way. And I love the fact that he said, you know, to know yourself and to be fine with that, to accept the way you are. And then we're on now to the MTA clip. This is Anne-Marie Thomas.
Hello, my name is Anne-Marie Lewis-Thomas and I'm the principal of the MTA, the Musical Theatre Academy. We don't really do self-tapes as a sort of formal round to get into the college, but we do it as a preliminary round for people who are possibly thinking of us as an option, but don't want to invest that time in an audition, so they can just throw out a self-tape of their 2 strongest disciplines in a format we call Audition from Home, send it to us, and we will tell you within a day whether we think it's worth you pursuing us as an option. For that, we've got an instructional video up on our website to try to explain how to do a self-tape, but we've kept it really simple. You know, the basic rule, try to get a plain background so that we can only see you, because we're just after your skill set. I think at drama school level, I think it's the colleges should understand that it's not going to be a polished performance. I think the hardest thing about a self-tape is, as I'm finding with this actually, is about when to let it go, because we're forever making errors when we're speaking. So we've got to accept that the tape isn't going to be perfect, and that's okay, because that's still us and we're okay. So maybe set yourself a limit of how many times you're going to shoot the tape, and then take the best take, because the more takes you do, the more likely you're going to get worked up, the more likely you are to get it wrong. So know that in one sense, I guess we're always settling. It will never be perfect. It will be the best it can be in that moment. And that's okay, because you are always enough. I hope that helps.
Again, it's a really lovely message, isn't it?
Very inspiring.
It is, absolutely. I'm really pleased that both of our videos came in with that as the key message. So I suppose in a way, you know, most of what we've been talking about tonight is finding ways not to get in our own way. Just to allow ourselves to have that acceptance and to be and to trust the creative insight that we have. So what we thought we'd do now is we're going to show another self-tape. It's a different one from Valentina. And what we'd like you to do is to put yourself into the mindset of the person that's watching this video. You know, what would you think? How would you comment? What would you say? And if you want to, please do put anything into the chat after it, and I'll have a look at that afterwards. So try and see this from the perspective of the auditioner. Okay.
Hi, my name is Valentina Paco. I'm based in Surrey Keys. You can contact me directly. And today I'm auditioning for La Voisine, Marie Boss, Amma She Loves, Antigone, TBC, Woman. Listen, Oren. I want you to start again by facing your ghosts here and now. Who murdered father? Who murdered father? Answer me. Mother was an adulteress and a murderess, wasn't she? If we'd done our duty under the law, she would have been hanged, wouldn't she? But we protected her. She could have lived, couldn't she? But she chose to kill herself as a punishment for her crime, of her own free will. It was an act of justice. You see that now, don't you? Tell me. And your feelings for being responsible for her death was only your morbid imagination. You don't feel it now. You'll never feel it again. There. You see, you can do it when you want to. Well, there now, don't cry. You ought to feel proud. You prove you can laugh at your ghosts from now on.
Okay, interesting. So I'm going to have a look and see if there's anything that people have already put into the chat. No. Okay, shall I kick off?
Yeah, why not?
Is that all right, Valentina?
Absolutely.
So, can I ask you, was it a ring light that you were using?
No, I'm actually standing in front of my window.
In front of the window? Because I found the light in your eyes slightly distracting. So that there are two very clear lights in the eyes, and what that did for me is it brings a very direct focus into the eyes, and it makes it look as if you're looking directly into the camera rather than, whereas actually if I looked really carefully, you were just slightly off to the side. And the other thing I think that it did is, you know, when you were doing the transition from the hard into the soft sort of part, if again, because I've seen this now several times, I've looked for it and I can see the memories coming into your eyes, but I think the two lights distract from that. I didn't see it until I really looked for it. The transition, you know, seeing you remember the circumstances and, you know, create the pictures weren't as clear as I would now know that you can do it, having worked with you.
I see. It's interesting. I found it a bit. So the instruction we had for this video was to look almost direct to the camera, so just next to the camera.
Yeah.
And something that I found quite tricky is because because of the way the light was coming into the room, I was fully facing the window.
Yeah.
I felt like I was blinking a lot. I was going to sneeze all the time, and I was just trying to keep my eyes open. So it was a little bit of a tricky take. But I see what you mean. Now, I absolutely see what you mean. I was not seeing the same thing because we talked about the ring light before. And although I am using natural light, still something that I might have to rethink as to where I position myself in front of the light source.
It is really interesting, isn't
Yeah.
it? It is so interesting.
Actually, if I can add my 2 cents into that, I thought that your background was very, very clear, and because of that, of course, you were popping out of the picture, and the fact that you managed to look just to the side of the camera really engaged me in a very natural way. And because I was so engaged, I actually could see the change in thoughts and when a thought was suddenly coming in your mind, which I thought was genuinely very, very good job there. I just think that the only possible thing that I would say is that of course the light was a bit dark, but with the editing you can actually increase the brightness of the picture, or you can put like maybe a white overcast or maybe even just a gray overcast. Anyway, you can balance the white and black levels out artificially, so that if you don't have an exceptional source of light, you can still sort of fix it so that it looks okay-ish.
That's a good thing, actually. I've done it so many times. I've never actually thought, you know, just you can actually adjust the colors a little bit, the brightness.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, no. It's a very good point, and thank you for pointing this out, because you know it's in your face. You have the tools there, but you don't actually.
It's easy to get overwhelmed. Very easy to get overwhelmed.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
And I would say, as you know, what is worth doing, that you know what you did brilliantly, as Sergio said, is, you know, there was no distractions. And, you know, every caster that we spoke to, the 2 drama schools, you know, that was the clearest message, wasn't it? Just don't get in your own way by not allowing us to see and hear you. And I suppose it's just, you know, remembering that, yes, of course, the acting is absolutely will always be the most important thing. But I guess if you're sending to a caster and they're on location and they're looking at it on their phone in the middle of a break of, you know, between takes, and they've got 2 actors to choose between, you know, and one has got a slightly, you know, lovely background and one's got a slightly ironed sheet, you know, something like that, you might not even know that little bit of distraction was the thing that was causing you to go in one direction or the other. You know, that the auditioners have the cognitive bias, and you know, in just the same way, they won't necessarily think in that way. So I guess it's just, as you know, as we've been saying all the way through this evening, just, you know, giving yourself the best fighting chance. But then, having given yourself the best fighting chance, you know, if an iron sheet, you know, an unironed sheet is all that you have, and you haven't got an iron there, or it's broken or whatever, just do the best you can with it. Accept that you've done the best that you can with it.
And probably you'd be surprised that you were going to get the part and you haven't stressed yourself so much as you used to be.
Exactly. You know, being unstressed is going to shoot your performance skills higher.
Absolutely.
You know, always, you know, that is going to be more important than any sheet that you can ever iron.
Ooh. And good sleep as well. Good sleep is imperative.
It absolutely is. Okay, so we're going to finish off with a few positives about this whole self-tape process, which Valentina's going to go through, and then a few quick last top tips, if you like, that we've been given by some of the casting people. So over to you. Yeah.
Right. I put a little bit of thought on that, and I was like, oh, yeah, we've been focusing on the struggles and how we can improve things, and then I'm like, right. I'm getting overwhelmed, so I will write myself a list of the good things I'm getting out of self-taping. So it's not very long. So first of all, traveling. I find I am based in London, but I had to travel all around the country, and sometimes even in Europe for different parts. And I find traveling stressful and expensive. Even if I just have to go in the city center and take a tube and a bus, that might make or break the day. Yes, it's overly reliable, but it's that one day that you want to be there. It's the scenario we were talking before. It's the part you've been waiting half your life now, and it's finally you've been called in for an audition, and it's the day that the tube is gonna break down, the bus is not gonna come on time, and everything's gonna go wrong. So with self-taping, I'm at the audition spot already. I'm here, I'm doing it now. Another thing, personally, I find stressful sometimes, you know, when you go into the green room, just waiting to go into the audition, you meet people. Sometimes you meet people from the past, or you meet new people, which is sometimes can be pleasant or not. Personally, I always dread the question, oh, mate, long time no see, what have you been up to? Nothing. I've been applying like crazy and auditioning for 3 months, but nothing has come through.
Relatable.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, I haven't won a BAFTA yet. I'm sorry. No, I feel like I sometimes I have the luxury of reminding myself, no, the BAFTA is not what makes you a performer or an actor or worthy. But sometimes when you're in a stressful situation, you don't have that capacity in the moment to tell yourself that and not get stress over that. Now, on the same breath, being at the audition location already, I feel like I can give myself proper time to warm up. I can give myself, I can allocate time. Now I'm gonna do the self-tape. So just before, stop, as we were saying before, do your mindful exercise, be present and go. Sometimes if you arrive just on time or just after your slot, you might not have that luxury that we do get to have when we're at home. And of course, you can audition anywhere in the world right now, at least for the first phase. So you know that, yes, they're really interested in you before you fly to Germany. But most importantly, I think I would like to finish my positive list with acceptance. I think I personally struggle with that, and I'm trying. I'm working on it. I think I'm getting better by the take, if I can say that. But I look and sound this way. I believe many of us can relate when we hear for the first time a recording of our voice, or we see ourselves on screen. We're like, ooh, oh. I mean, even if you see the Oscars and you see the actors nominated for best actors and actresses, and you see their reactions when their clip is playing, I mean, that tells a lot. I mean, I find it difficult to watch myself back or see or hear my voice. However, well, obviously, I mean, the impulse is to criticize every aspect of what you're seeing. Oh, this, oh, that, and that's the main thing that comes out, like the impulse. However, I find that the more you watch yourself, the more you get familiar with your instrument, with what you have. So I want to think self-taping as a vehicle to self-acceptance. I look and sound this way, and it's good. It's okay. It's absolutely fine. Now, once you've accepted how you sound and how you look, I think it will be easier to identify the positive aspects of your performance. And you never know, you might surprise yourself. Oh God, I didn't know I could do that, or I didn't know I was doing this.
It's really, really true. Thank you. Yeah, I just want to add one thing to that, really. In terms of the positives, you know, as someone who's a director of an inclusive theatre company, we work with people with and without disabilities and mental ill health. You know, I just think it's a lot more inclusive. There are so many actors that can't afford to do the trips to London, yet alone the trips to Europe. And, you know, there are a lot of actors that live too far away to actually get to the auditions ever. So on both a geographical and a financial spectrum, you know, it has meant that it is more of an inclusive process. So on to our last top tips then.
So top tip is to say yes to the invites, because not every actor does that, unbelievably. And also make sure that you submit it on time, because obviously not every actor's doing that either.
Right. Pardon me. So my personal advice, I've got two of them. One, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but just focus on your skills. Just focus on showing the person who's doing the casting what you can do. It doesn't need to be perfect. The script, the background, okay, as plain as possible. But just remember, you're trying to show your bag of skills to this person. And then the person that's auditioning, you might talk to the director and say, you know, we need to change this and this, but I want this person because they're so good. So just focus on yourself and showing what you can do. And another little bit of advice, the format of how you send the audition has to be very, very clear. And it's important that it has your name, and then the role you're auditioning for, the scene that you're performing, and of course, the name of the project that you're interested in.
And on the same breath, remember that the caster might be on set already, and they will most probably have a quick look on your tape, of your tape on their phone. So make sure there are no distractions. This is very important. I know Beth has stressed it already a lot, but let's say it one more time. Make sure you have a clear shot without any distractions. And of course, as we were saying before about the reader, make sure, if possible, that they are not in the same room as you, and that they are not using the same mic as you.
And another really good piece of advice would be to practice your camera technique and practice self-taping when you don't have a self-tape to do, like any craft. Self-taping is something that you need to practice to get better at, and also really try, it's not always easy, but to have a positive self-image, step away and really try and get that confidence and feel grounded, and stop trying to define yourself from the next job you're going to get, or putting so much emphasis on this self-tape. Just do your best, be confident, and everything will be great.
I actually think that's really good advice. The practice when you haven't got one to do, and not necessarily on your own pieces. Play, you know, like you would in a space. So I'm just going to finish by saying, you know, on the day that you record the self-tape, try and be the calmest and kindest version of yourself that you can be. Make sure that you believe in the project that you're applying for. Make sure that you believe in your own ability to get it, and that you deserve to have it. And so I'm going to finish with a goal-based visualization, a very useful and very effective exercise that we can use for auditions. So if I could ask you just to get yourself nice and comfortable, Feet flat on the floor if you possibly can, so you're a little bit grounded. Arms to wherever they're level, wherever's comfortable for you, and just closing your eyes. And I'm going to give you 3 moments of the audition process to visualize, to imagine, and do it in as much detail as you would, as if you were doing a sense memory exercise. So the first moment is you've got into the room and you're just beginning your monologue if you're thinking of it live, or you've just started filming if you're thinking about it on self-tape. Just really define that moment as much detail as you can. What are you seeing, smelling, hearing, touching, tasting? How are you feeling? How's it physically manifesting? I'd give yourself about 30 seconds or a minute for that. And now moving on to step 2, moment 2, and that is halfway through your piece and it's going absolutely brilliantly, as well as it possibly could be. Again, get the details. On to moment 3. You've just finished the speech and it's gone the best that it's ever gone. Again, really capture the feeling. Think of the details. And finally, you're going to put all 3 together. So you're creating now a little mental movie that you can replay to get yourself into the best possible space, perhaps on the way to the audition if it's live, or just before you do it. So do the tech aspects and then give yourself a moment and do the visualization before you start to record. So I'm going to give you 1 minute now just to go through from moment 1 to moment 2 to moment 3. And your minute begins now. And in your own time, just opening your eyes and coming back to the present moment. It's a lovely exercise. It's incredibly effective. So goal-based visualizations have been part of what the sports industry have done for a very long time now. But the arts and business are just catching up. And of course, we're much better at it because we're used to being creative. We're used to using our imagination in that way. So why not use it to our advantage? There aren't any questions in the chat, but please have a look at our contact slides here. At the top here on the right is a free app, usetembo.app. We've created it during lockdown. It is very much in early stage of development, but there's already a 9-stage course for wellness and lots and lots of exercises, maybe 200 or 300 exercises that you can use on there already. So please do, you just type usetembo.app into your browser. Our email addresses are over on the left, so please do feel free to contact Margot or I with any questions that you have or any comments that you have. And we'd like to say a big thank you, as it says on the slide, for you joining us today for the webinar. Keep in touch with us, and most importantly, remember that you're a creative first and foremost. So thank you very much for joining us today for our webinar, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.